Hi everyone, my name is Corey, and there's one thing you need to know about me. I love YouTube. There's just so much information out there, but sadly, only so little time. Well, in this lesson, we're actually going to solve that problem by building a multimodal AI application using LangChain and the OpenAI API. So what is multimodal? Well, it's just a fancy way to say different types of data. So in today's lesson, we're going to take a YouTube video, transcribe or convert that into an MP3, audio, and then transcribe that into text. Then we're going to take that text, store that into a database where an AI model can retrieve that information quickly so we can actually ask questions of the video and get the information that the video is about and all the great goodness of that. And then we can now get all of the information that we want from the video without even watching it. Sounds good. So let's get started. So the first thing we need to do before we even get started is making sure that we have access to the OpenAI APIs. So there'll be another guide available to explain to you how to do that. But actually, when you get the API key, you can go to the environment variable here on the left-hand side and create an environment variable. After that's done, we're going to install some packages. So the first package we're going to install is LangChain. And LangChain essentially is kind of the driving force behind all of this because it allows us to query the model, get back information in a much organized way through code. So we're going to go ahead and install that. And the first thing you'll notice as well is that we have these version numbers pre-assigned. The world of AI and AI tooling is moving so fast. So we want to make sure you get the right versions to, remove any stress later on in the future if there's things that change or things that break. So go ahead and run that. The next one we'll install is YTDLP. And YTDLP allows us to download a YouTube video and convert that into MP3 much, much easier. So I'll go ahead and install that one as well. And the next two really are focusing on the querying part of this lesson. So tick token allows us to convert a text into tokens. We'll talk about tokenization later on, way more in depth when we start making our database. And doc_array essentially allows us to work with that data in an in-memory document store. So we don't have to go into an external database to find that information later on. So I'll go ahead and run these two as well. Once we have those packages installed, it's time to import them as well as other important packages that we'll use in this tutorial. So the first one we'll import is OS package. So that's import OS. Nice and simple. And OS is going to allow us to start doing some things around the file system in terms of actually saving those files and reading them later on. The next one we'll do is actually import glob. So import glob. So there, import glob or globe. This will also allow us to search the files later on that we have saved to make sure that we get the right files and sending it into the model. Next, we'll also import the OpenAI package. This obviously is going to help us interact with these APIs in a much streamlined fashion and not just sending direct API requests. And then we have this YTDLP. So we're going to import YTDLP as YouTube DL. So again, this is the package that's going to allow us to download these YouTube videos and convert them into MP3s. And the next one is from YTDLP. We're going to import download error. Again, since we're pulling videos from the internet, crazy things can happen. So we want to make sure that if there is an error that we can respond to that error and essentially try again. So we'll write some code about that does that as well. And the last one is just to get into the doc_array, which we explained earlier. Once that's done, we can go ahead and run this cell. And we spelled doc_array wrong, so let's make sure we get that, doc_array. Always trust your tooltips because those are the ones that will get you through these things. So doc_array, import And now that we got that working, perfect. Next one is actually just setting our OpenAI API key. So we're going to use the OS to get this environment variable that we set up. So we'll go ahead and click that. And now we're ready to get going with working with LangChain. So to download the YouTube video, like I explained earlier, we're going to use this YTDLP package. The YouTube URL, so the actual specific video that we're going to pull in is a DataCamp video. Later on, if you want to explore and use this tutorial to look at other videos or even multiple videos at the same time, you can go ahead and change that. But we'll use this predefined URL for now. So this YouTube URL, and then we also have this output directory, which is where we'll store the files, the MP3 files once we've downloaded them. And then we have this config, this is provided to you. So you don't need to necessarily change anything here, but just making sure that we get the best encoding and best format for the MP3 file. What we'll first need to do after is to actually create a directory. And the best way to do this is also to check if the directory is already created. So maybe we're going to download multiple videos later on or things like that. So we're going to make this if statement. So if not os.path that exists. So again, this is checking if the path exists or not. And then the output directory. So that's passing in, again, this files audio that we've set up. And if it's not, go ahead and make that directory. So make dir's output directory or output dir. Next thing we'll do is actually print that the video has been downloading. I like to do this. So again, I just like to see the progress and making sure things are working. So we're going to go and print, and this is going to be an F string. Let's just tell this a downloading video from, and then we're going to pass in the YouTube URL to make sure that we're getting the right one, of course. And then now this is going to be the next important step. Since we're downloading video from the internet, things can happen. Traffic, delays, we just get errors, whatever, because YouTube isn't necessarily working in the same way that we expect it to. So within the YouTube DL, we can first see if there's an error and then retry the download. So like I said, let's try. So we're going to use a try statement here, try, and then we're going to have with, and then we're going to take in the YouTube underscore DL, and then we're going to pass in the YouTube DL, and then we're taking the config that we just set up here, YDL config as YDL. And then next we're going to then download that. So YDL that download, where we're going to pass in the actual URL that we're going to download. URL. Next, we'll put a little tab here. Then we'll have an exception. So except, and this is in case we get the download error. Essentially do the same thing. So with YouTube DL dot YouTube DL YDL config as YDL. And then download, retry the download. YouTube URL. Perfect. So now if we run this, need to have a little error here. Let's see where that our lovely AI assistant will point us to. Classic. So I've got this extra quote here. Maybe you didn't do it as well. So we can go ahead and accept that. Thank you. Great. So now we have that. We have some hidden output here. So you can see that's downloading from there. And you can actually see the progress. So it should be pretty fast. Again, depending on traffic, depending on where you're located. And of course, if you change the file, also how large it is. So then now you can see here, if we go to the files, audio, and then now we have this MP3 file. So that's great. Now we know that we can now start the transcription of this file using the Whisper API. But before we actually start the transcription file, we need the transcription process. We need to also make sure that we have the files located. So the first thing we'll do is actually find all of the audio files. So we're going to make this variable called audio files. And we're going to use glob this time. So glob.glob. And then we'll do OS. So again, searching on that, path.join, and output directory. So search in the output directory. So that's what we're using glob for. And then anything with the MP3 extension. So that's going to help us find all of the MP3s that we've downloaded in the case that there's multiple ones because maybe the file size is long or we've downloaded multiple videos. Next thing we'll do is take in the audio file name so that we know which file names that we're using. So file name, and then we're going to take in the list, the first element of that. So the audio file list that we've just created at the top. And then we're going to print that. So we just make sure that we've located the right file. So print audio file name, and make sure that you spell file name right so you don't have any issues later on. So I'll go ahead and click that. We're going to click run. Great. So now we have this MP3 file, right? Python machine learning tutorial, splitting your data. So now that we have the MP3 file downloaded, it's now time to take that MP3 file, send it to Whisper for transcription, and then obviously store those transcriptions so that we can store them later on and ask questions of them. So the first thing we'll do is go down to this cell, and we'll see that we have defined some function parameters already, which is the audio file name, the output file, which is where the files will be stored, and the model being Whisper 1. Whisper 1 right now in this current time is the best for doing the transcription. But maybe in the future you're watching this and there's a Whisper 2, maybe Whisper 3 available. But right now, for now, we're going to use Whisper 1. So the next thing we'll do is actually transcribe the audio file using the API. So I like to do this sort of print and just making sure, since this is going to take some time, that we have some statement that, okay, we're doing the conversion. So let's say converting audio to text. And then let's have a with statement. So this is actually going to open the file and then use that to be sent to the API. So let's say with open audio file and RB, which is another method to open up that file as audio. And that's good. Now, since we're doing API requests, we always get a response back. So let's handle that response by storing the response. So response equals OpenAI .audio .transcribe, and then the model, which is Whisper 1, like we discussed, and audio. So that's what we're passing in. Now that we have that, we need to store that into the transcriptions. So let's go ahead and extract that by making another variable called transcript, and then the response. We handle that, but we're only interested in the text, so we'll have this response text, because there could be other things in the response that we aren't going to use later for this tutorial. So if I go ahead and click on play, now we see that this is converting audio to text, and this will probably be the longest cell to run. Normally it takes around 30 to 40 seconds, so if you're going past a minute and a half or something like that, I'd suggest maybe stopping the cell and running it later. Again, this all depends on traffic in regards to the actual models, as well as maybe if you're using a shared account or something, you might also get throttled in. So again, since there's all these API requests, just make sure that you're getting the right times there. So that took me around 30 seconds. And now we have this code already provided to you, but this is going to check if that saved the actual transcript. So if this output file is not created, we're going to make that file, and then again we're going to write with this W the transcripts into a transcript file. So I'll go ahead and run that. And we're going to print that. So now we can see, hi, in this tutorial, we're going to look at data pre-processing technique. And if I go to my files, I should also see the transcript file show up, which is this transcript text. So now that we have the transcript downloaded or from the response from Whisper API, now we can take that text file and turn it into a document. And a document is a way that we can take the text and the metadata about that text and store it together. And that's what we'll use to actually store it into our vector database. So fortunately for us, LangChain has great modules to do this in a very effective way. So we're going to go ahead and import that. So we're going to do from LangChain document loaders. And then LangChain has many different available document loaders. Since we're working with just text, we're going to use the text loader, but I encourage you to check out the docs of LangChain if you're working with different types of data. And then we're going to make a new instance of that class by going to loader and then text loader. And now we want to actually get the files. So let's do files, let's see, slash files slash transcripts slash transcript.txt. And then we're going to load this actually into another variable called docs, which we'll use to actually store that into the vector database. So we're going to do docs loader.load. So we're going to call that function. And that should work where we've gone ahead and convert that in. And now just to make sure that it's actually working, we can go in and look at the first element of that. So docs, and then that done, 0. So checking the first element, and that should print out the first element. So now you can see here, right? Page, content, document, and then it's the intro to that. So perfect. Now that we have the transfer text into the documents, now to actually create the in-memory vector store. So now that we have these into documents, we actually need to store them in an in-memory vector store. And the reason we're doing this in memory is because we don't have much data, and it really allows us to create a vector store without actually connecting to an external database, which we'll do in later lessons in this course. But again, since we're working with a small amount of data, we can create a vector store, and then when we're not using it, it goes away, which is really efficient and really cost effective. So the first thing we'll actually do is import the tick token package, and that allows us to tokenize these documents, which is essentially a way to break it down into pieces, assigns values to them, and then allows the model to understand the relationships between them. So we're going to go ahead and import tick token, which is the package that we'll use to do this. So we'll go ahead and do that. And next we'll actually create the actual document search. So this is searching through a list of embeddings to find the most similar embeddings in regard to the query, and then presenting the correct answer or whatever the model feels the correct answer is. So first thing we'll actually do is import the QA, which is LangChain retrieval QA, which is a LangChain model to do all of this. So we're going to do from LangChain.chains import retrieval QA. Next thing we'll do is actually have import the chat OpenAI module. So this allows us to then have this chat-like feature. We'll first have it just answer questions, so we won't have a chat per se, but this is again querying the model or sending something to the model to get a response back. So we do from LangChain.chat models import chat open AI. Next, we'll do the doc in-array in-memory search. So this will be powering the search elements of the vector store that we haven't stored here. So we have from LangChain.vector stores import doc array in-memory search. And then lastly is the embedding. So this is what's going to be stored in the vector store. So we're going to do from LangChain.embeddings import open AI embeddings. Perfect. So now we'll go ahead and run that cell. And the next step is actually to create an instance of the doc array in memory search. So to do this, we're going to make a variable called db doc array in memory search, and then from the documents, we're going to pass in a couple of things. So the docs, which we created in the last step, and the OpenAI embeddings. So it's going to take in the text that we have in the document and create embeddings of them. So I'll run that. And that's a docs with an S. Make sure you get that correct. This might take a few seconds, but now that we have that, we're going to go ahead and start doing the retrieval process. To start the retrieval process of the embeddings, we first need to make a retriever. So we're going to define this retriever equals db.asRetriever. And then we also need to define the LLM. So what is actually making, what's the model that we're actually going to be operating these queries? So we'll first have this LLM, define that LLM, and then we'll define this as the chat, OpenAI. And then we're going to put in temperature, which is 0 at 0.0. And what this means is, if this is the first time you're seeing this reference, basically it's how creative the model can be in regards to this, and essentially in the responses. And since we want this to be a search, we want to have less creativity and more definitiveness in its response. So we'll go ahead and run that cell. And the next thing we'll do is actually create a variable or a new chain type where we're going to actually retrieve this from the vector store that we just made. So we're going to call this one QA stuff. And stuff is actually a technical term, which I'll explain later on. But this is going to be, then we're going to define this chain type as the retrieval QA from chain type. And then we're going to define a few things. First is the LLM, which we've already defined as the chat OpenAI. We're going to do this chain type, which is stuff. And LangChain has a few different chain types, but this is basically how we are chunking the data, how we're dividing the data into the vector store. And this is basically bringing everything together at once. There's other ones that do it in more an iterative fashion, but this is probably the fastest way to do it. And again, since we're working with very little data, this is going to be the most effective. Then we'll have this retriever equals retriever. And then lastly, we're going to set this verbose to true. And that means we're just basically going to allow the model to show its steps and to show its work. It's a great way to, especially when you're starting out, to see the whole process. It's an optional setting, so you don't necessarily need this, but I like it, and it really shows, again, if you have any errors or where the steps are in that process. So now we're going to run this. And lastly, and the most important step now, is to start the query. So let's start asking questions of this video. So let's make one first query, a simple one. Let's say this is, let's just ask, what is this tutorial about? Great. So then we need to handle the response. So we store that, and then we're going to do QA stuff. And we're going to run this on the query that we just defined. And then we're going to actually handle this response there, or print the response so we can see what the model has responded with. So we're going to enter the QA chain. So this is the verbose part of it. It's finished the chain. And now we can see that this tutorial is about data pre-processing technique for machine learning called splitting your data, and you can read the rest. The next query we can run is a little bit more difficult one, right? So let's say, let's ask it, what is the difference between a training set and a test set? So only looking at the video transcript will we fully understand that. So we can also then run this one, see what it responds back to. So again, we're going to enter the retrieval QA chain. Let's finish the chain. And now let's see the answer. The training subset is a subset of the data that is used to train the machine learning model. which is right. And the test set, on the other hand, is the subset of the data that is used to evaluate the performance of the trained model. Again, correct answer. Again, now I don't have to watch the video. I can get all the answers I need right there. Let's see, let's just about the relevance of this video. Like maybe we want to categorize videos based on, you know, who the audience, intended audience is. We have another query called saying, you know, who should watch this lesson? Again, then we can take the response, the QA stuff, pass in the query, and then, .run, and then the response as well, print that out. So this says, this lesson is suitable for anyone who's interested in learning about data preprocessing techniques for machine learning. It's especially relevant for investors who are new to machine learning. So again, if we wanted to say, okay, we've categorized all these videos and I'm not new to machine learning, so I don't need to watch this, and I can remove it from my watch later playlist. That's a great method, a great way to do that. But now that we know we've asked questions about the video, let's just have some fun and let's see if we ask questions that are not in this text, right? Not in the transcript, but completely irrelevant. So we have one response, one query, which is, so who is the greatest football team on Earth, right? Not the intergalactic football teams that we all love. So we'll go ahead again, run this QA stuff, and then not run, query, and take the response. Let's see what this is going to say here. So I don't know the answer, as it is subjective and can vary depending on personal opinions, criteria, and used to determine greatness, which is a beautiful way of putting it. Now, okay, you know, that's fair, right? It is a subjective thing. I don't expect the model to do that. But let's ask something that's not subjective. Let's ask something that's like, you know, quite clear, like, you know, how long is the circumference of the Earth? So again, taking this response equals QA stuff. You guessed it, run, query, and print the response. So we go ahead and run that. So this is a very objective thing. And first we need to, I've been typing it so much, response. A very objective thing. So let's see what it says here. Finish chain. Oh my. Response-y, response. Come on. Here we go. Drum roll, please. I don't know the answer to that question, right? So here's the model again, using the transcript as the source of the data or the vector store that we have created. If you went to OpenAI now or ChatGPT and asked the same question, you won't get this answer. You would actually get the circumference of the Earth. So now we have a model and an application that's asking and able to answer questions on this particular video, nothing else, but in a good way where we can then save time and we can determine which videos are worth our time. And I hope this video was worth your time and that you built something great. I can't wait to see what you build next. Thank you for watching.